Ideas In-Depth Week. Iowa Ideas is an event series that explores topics that are important to Iowans in various category tracks. This week, we will focus on innovation in agriculture within our all-new agriculture track. The Gazette would like to give a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, ITC Midwest, for their support of this event. Our sponsor support helps make the Iowa Ideas discussions free for everyone. You'll be able to submit questions to our panel today by entering them into the Q&A box or in the Zoom chat, and we'll work them into the conversation. Today, we will discuss manufacturing and what equipment, products, or systems born out of Iowa are leading new manufacturing in the ag industry. I'm Jared Strong, an investigative reporter at the Gazette, and today I'm joined by Balaji Venkataraman of Pivot Bio. We have a couple other panelists that are a little bit late to join, but for now, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit further.
Thank you, Jared, for the kind introduction. So I work for Pivot Bio, which is a very exciting and innovative company that's producing a new kind of fertilizer product. It's really a nitrogen production product where we make microorganisms, which is used to fix and deliver nitrogen to the plants. Very excited to be in this panel to discuss what our company does and how we aim to help farmers across America, and Iowa being one of our key markets for us. And the farmers in Iowa are very, very important to our business.
Very good. Yeah. So tell us more about the product and how long has it been around? What sort of microbes are you using to help our crops in Iowa?
Oh, that's a great question, Jared. So the founding kind of idea of the company by the two scientists that founded our company, Karsten Temme and Alvin Tamser, was they were scientists and they were wondering if there was a better way to provide nutrition to crops versus synthetic fertilizers. And so what their journey led them to was a scientific discovery to look at microbes in the soil that naturally fix nitrogen and produce nitrogen. And they searched through the billions of microorganisms that you find in soil, and they found a few organisms that actually did the fixing of nitrogen. Now, the challenge when you take just these microorganisms and use them as is when there's a source of nitrogen on the soil, they stop working because it takes a lot of energy to produce the nitrogen. So what these scientists then did is to do a gene edit where the microbes continue to produce nitrogen that's needed for the soil. So we sell our product as an on-seed product, which means that it's coated on seed, down-seed from the seed processing, and a liquid in-furrow product. And the way our microbes work is they get in the soil, they colonize in the root system of the plant, and they provide like a spoonful of nitrogen as the plant grows. So you can think of about half a pound of nitrogen a day that they provide. So this product today can replace about 40 pounds of nitrogen in the soil. And what it does is by using naturally occurring nitrogen that's in the air that we all breathe, that nitrogen is fixed and made available to the plant in the most efficient form that the plant can use. We are an enabler for the use of synthetic fertilizer, and we will enhance, our product enhances the use of synthetic fertilizer. Our markets are pretty much all the crops, but our focus are really on the cereal crops with corn, wheat, and cotton being our key crops that we target for nitrogen replacement and use. And probably our biggest market is in Iowa. We have a number of our seed dealers there. We have a customer success center in Ames. And probably our biggest portion of our customers and even our employees are in the wonderful state of Iowa.
Very good. And so I know that there, with soybean plants, there is some sort of natural symbiosis between bacteria in the soil and soybean plants that, will fix nitrogen for those. Is it the same? Like, is it the same sort of symbiosis with these, with corn or with the other crops you're talking about that these microbes have where they're working together with the plant and to produce the nitrogen? Or
yeah, that's a fantastic analogy, Jared. So if you take a corn plant, it doesn't naturally have that symbiosis that a soybean plant has. So that's exactly what our product does. It works in symbiosis with the plant, where it takes sugars that are excreted from the roots of the plant, and then it takes atmospheric nitrogen, takes the sugars for the energy, and then converts that into a form that can be used by the plant. And it's kind of spoon feeding the plant as it's required. So it's a very symbiotic, very harmonious process that really blends in very well with the plant.
And how many farmers are using your technology?
Oh, that's a very big number. Great question. We have 1,400 dealers. I mean, there's several thousand farmers that use our product. It's quite widely used across the country, and corn is one of our key crops.
Mhm. Yeah. And so what does this have the potential to completely supplant, the use of commercial synthetic fertilizers?
No, at this point, our product would replace about 40 pounds of replacement nitrogen. Typically, a corn farmer would use something like 200 pounds. So this is really designed to enhance the amount of nitrogen that's available in the soil for the plant while not displacing fertilizer completely. It will reduce the amount of synthetic fertilizer that's used, and our goal is to reduce the most inefficient forms of fertilizer use. We recommend through our best management practices that farmers continue to apply fertilizer on top to provide nutrition for the plant when it needs it, in addition to our product. So this is a very harmonious process working with other synthetic fertilizers, and we see it working in conjunction with those.
And obviously, nitrate contamination in our waterways in Iowa is a pretty big issue. What does your product do to help that? Would you say that there's less nitrate leaching from farm fields by using your product than by using commercial fertilizers?
Yeah, exactly, Jared. So the challenge with commercial fertilizers is that a portion of it, roughly 50 to 60%, depending on the academic studies that you look at, is either lost to the air as N2O or as nitrate that leaches and gets into the groundwater and wastewater, which then is a big challenge that the municipalities face in the water treatment system. Our microbe fixes the nitrogen and makes it available for the plant, so the plant uses it to grow, and so it avoids that leaching of nitrate into the wastewater. So that's something that's very critical in the attributes of our product.
Very cool. And so do you think you'll get to a point where you can develop it far enough that it will provide more nitrogen in the future, or to take up more of that need for the additional fertilizer application?
Yeah, our R&D scientists are working on the next gen products, and our goal is to get to something like 80 pounds of replacement. And we have done initial trials, including in test plots, which shows the validity of those concepts. Now, as you know, in agriculture, you have to go through a very rigorous commercialization process, make sure that it works in the field, make sure that it works for our farmers. So we're 3, 4 years down the road from getting a product that would take us to that next generation of nitrogen replacement, starting from a very good base of 40 pounds.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you make the microbes make more nitrogen?
That is a great question. It's probably something that even I don't understand the science very well. So it's all about taking the microbe and then going in and doing the gene edits, which is amazing technology that our scientists get into, is to understand the genes that drive the production of nitrogen and ensure that those are turned on when there's synthetic nitrogen available. So they go on and customize certain genes and don't customize other genes, and turn off and turn on certain genes within the microorganism. And I want to be very clear that these are gene edited microbes, so they're not GMOs, meaning you're not taking microbes from another organism and putting it into the microbe. This is taking the microbe and making edits within the genetics of that microbe.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
It is absolutely fascinating to see how it's done.
Well, cool. Well, hey, we've got our two other panelists have joined us. Thank you, Matt Cook of Sukup Manufacturing and Caleb Renner of Renner Ag Solutions. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves a bit too. Matt, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Matt Cook with Sukup Manufacturing. I'm our Chief Marketing Officer here. Actually have a technical background, started as a electrical engineer for the business, working in control systems automation. So the early part of my career was all spent on kind of the hardware side of things, and then moved into promoting and selling the the inventions that we had created as a team, and now we've actually purchased Ramco this last year in West Des Moines, which continues to be able to drive that automation engine forward, as they do about 10 to 15% of their business is integration of the equipment that they sell, and so we utilize that from our automation side. But Sukup Manufacturing is 62 years old now. Started in 1963. We're 100% privately held in the Sukup family here. I'm one of the married-ins to the family. But they made me work here the better part of 20 years before taking an executive role. So anyway, we have about 850 employees worldwide. We have 6 distribution centers throughout the Midwest here, a sister company in Hedensted, Denmark, and a joint venture just outside of about an hour south of Kiev in the Ukraine. So several moving pieces. We're a global manufacturer. We've shipped to more than 100 countries and in all 50 states. So excited to join you guys today.
Very good. Thanks for being here. Caleb, I will compliment your mustache.
Thanks.
And ask you to introduce yourself further.
Yeah, well, I'm a fifth generation farmer in north central Iowa, and me and my father farm corn and soybeans. But also, I'm the owner and founder of a company called Renner Ag Solutions, which is currently developing a solution to cleaning out grain bins utilizing a net, cables, and winches. This is under development as we speak. It's patent pending and is a fascinating new technology that is hopefully going to be done with engineering through an engineering firm called Dreamforge based out of Red Oak, Iowa. We're on pace to start implementing these in farmers' grain bins this summer, actually, and get a lot of interesting data. Super thrilled about all the different changes we've made to our design and how it's becoming not only very effective at cleaning out grain bins. That's, of course, our one goal, but also very, very efficiently engineered as well, to a degree that it might be sustainable in the future of agriculture. So along with that, I'm a student at North Iowa Area Community College, and this is my final year there, and also very involved with the Papa John's Center in Nyack. So lots of ties in north central Iowa, and excited to talk on this panel.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Before we get to your device, I figure we'd talk with Matt a little bit about the products that his company makes, since I assume, Caleb, your products would be used inside of the Sukup products. So go ahead, Matt. What do you guys make?
Yeah, so Sukup Manufacturing is one of the world leaders in grain storage, drying, and handling equipment. We also, as I mentioned before, have a new technology division in Sync, which is aimed at holistic farm automation. And then we also, this last Tuesday, closed on a acquisition of a partner of ours in green stairs. And so for many years, Green has been making stair equipment for the grain bin industry. And so that's a vertical integration for us. So they're out of Illinois. So anyway, yes, grain bins, we sell some of the largest equipment in the entire world. 2 of the largest bins in the entire world are next to each other in Mason City at the ethanol plant for Golden Grain Energy. But 165 feet in diameter, 30 rings tall. Each of those bins holding 2.25 million bushel.
That's incredible. How do you put those together?
One at a time. No, it's so we roll those sheets. We have several different bin lines, all of which are able to roll down to 8-gauge steel. So at the bottom of those bins, I believe it's 3 or 4 laminated sheets of 8-gauge steel. So several sheets kind of making up the bottom several rings as the volumetric density is higher. The pressure is going to be higher at the bottom than it is at the top. Yeah, they're all about 112.5 inches long and 44 inches tall, and they come off the bin line and they're rolled at a very specific radius. They're bundled up. They're given a sheet that is easier to understand than IKEA instructions. And they go out to the site, and these are the blue ones, these are the black ones, these are the yellow ones, and they go up in a gauge layout all the way up. But they're actually built top down. So when you get to the site, the roof is assembled first, and then the bin continues to get jacked up one ring at a time.
Gotcha. Yeah. So is the majority of your customers farmers, or is it co-ops, or is it becoming
50-50 between commercial and farm? We traditionally have been a very farm focused company, where on-farm storage gained a lot of momentum in the 90s and early 2000s. And it's funny, I go to some of the farm shows and I will see customers that will come up and say, yeah, I got a Suka. My grandparents have an old Suka bin, from the 1970s, and it's like, well, you probably have one of our fans or heaters, but we didn't actually start making grain bins until 2001. And so that's one of the things that a lot of people don't know about us, is that 75% of our revenue now comes from products that we weren't making 25 years ago. And that's a big deal for innovation and moving the industry forward and kind of meeting them where they are. We're one of the very few companies. I quite frankly can't understand why other people don't do it like we do it. But we're one of the very few companies that knows our customers' names. We farm ourselves. We make products that are aimed at fixing the real problems of agriculture. It's not some engineer that has no experience with the agriculture industry designing products for it, which quite frankly is what how many other industries are done. But we know the people that are buying our product. We interact with them. We live a very similar lifestyle, and we're just solving problems for that agriculture community.
Yeah, would you say that more farmers are getting on-site storage these days? I mean, I don't know. What's the trend there?
Yeah, I would say this may be a popular statement, it may not be a very popular statement. Those that have invested in on-site, on-farm storage are the ones that are growing, and the ones that do not have on-site storage, that are going right from field to elevator, co-op, what have you, ethanol plant, are the ones that are subject to market pricing where it is. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. You go back to the late 60s and you look at the trend, and there's an average of a 20% bump from the lowest point in the fall to the highest point in the spring. And that's where marketing that grain is so important, and you can't do that if you physically don't have it anymore. And the only way to have that is the physical storage on site. So those numbers really speak for themselves. And there's going to be great years where you end up being at the height of the market, and that there's a lot of other macroeconomic factors that go into how that works. But in general, the price of grain, specifically corn, wheat, and soybeans, is going to be the lowest in the August-September timeframe, and the highest around the March, May, June timeframe. April, May, June.
So how long can farmers keep their grain in your bins?
So that's more of a question of kernel chemistry, but broadly, I would say that the drier it is, the longer you can store it. There's I would say that that holds pretty well true in most chemical models, but when if you want to keep grain for 6 months, you're going to be targeting that 14-15% time moisture content range for corn. If you want to go longer than that, call it 2 or 3 years, you're going to need to be down in that 12-11% time frame, and then you're going to have to make sure that you're conditioning that grain correctly through the storage season. So that talks about moving the temperature front through the grain, making sure that you don't have frozen corn on the inside of the bin, as frozen corn tends to expand the bin. So there are several kind of basic tenets of keeping that grain for longer periods of time, but all of which are important for the not only the longevity of the equipment, but the condition of the grain when you go to sell it.
And some of your technology is focused around like monitoring the quality of that grain, right? How does that
Yep.
work?
Yeah, so that's our sync initiative. For many years, our customers have had to kind of go elsewhere to be able to monitor the kind of inside of that bin, and we've known that, but we also know that that technology that exists in the industry has been found wanting. And so we've looked at that really hard here for the past decade, and have decided we had actually tried this in a partner relationship. We tried this in a kind of a hybrid model, and we kind of decided that a wholly owned OEM offering is really what we need for this. And so we've been building that out for the last couple of years. We're excited about this. We just unveiled this as a product here at the Iowa show in Des Moines. We've kind of gone through the sales cycle. It's been a gauntlet this year, probably 12, 15 shows over the course of 3 months. And so our team's been all over the place, making the sync technology visible. But we're talking about, data monitoring, then we're talking about decision making, and then we're talking about full site automation. So it's an iterative process all the way through. But, at the end of the day, my goal when I joined the business in 2007 was is now being accomplished by this sync initiative, where you pull in your there's been several obviously other automation advancements that have happened, but imagine your driverless combine um, discharging the finished grain into a drone grain cart, and that grain cart coming into the receiving side of the grain storage facility, and it says, I want this grain to go into bin 6. And then all of the sync automation relays that information all the way down, sets up the appropriate interlocks and pathway for that grain to happen. And then there's a digital transaction that happens between that grain cart and bin 6. Pretty special.
Yeah, that's incredible. Your recent acquirement of Ramco, does that fit into what you were just talking about, or
Yep.
how does that? Okay.
So as I kind of take over global sales, advertising and distribution for the business, kind of just making sure that we're doing all the things we need to there. I couldn't focus on both things at once, and so when we hired or when we acquired Ramco, one of the great leaders that we got was Hank Norum, their CEO and president, who has a knack for this as well. And so he's been leading that team for the now a little bit over a year, building that team up. We have a roadmap for that, but he's been instrumental in making that a reality. So that's been fun as he calls it, Matt's baby, to be able to kind of bring that into infancy is pretty cool.
Very good. Well, Caleb, thanks for patiently waiting. Tell us some more about your invention.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it at first, but it is called the Agranet. That is the name I gave it. And to go into a little more detail, it is a polyester propylene mesh net. It's the same material that is essentially made, or that trampolines are made out of. And what I did for my initial alpha test was I had a custom net made, and I lined the inside of my grain bin, and I connected. It had grommets on the end, and I connected via cable to the two winches that I mounted on the top of my grain bin, and I hooked it up, wired it up with some cheap batteries, and lifted up the winch, or I lifted up the net with the winches. This was successful in the sense that we cleaned out grain that was sitting at the bottom of the grain bin, an 18-foot grain bin with a net, but it was really dangerous and it needed some help. So it was time for me to raise a little bit of money and go back to the drawing board and hire a professional engineer to toy around with this idea and see if he could make it more effective and more efficient. Right now, I have raised $75,000 and have partnered, like I mentioned before, with an engineering firm called Dreamforge. And they are, as we speak, in fact, this week, Thursday, I'm going down to see the tests done. They are trying 6 different designs and iterations of my original patented idea, involving tracks that twist and actually twist the net. It's almost like it's like, imagine you have a scaled up cinch stack at the bottom of your grain bin, and you can twist it and you can pull on these cables that cinch up the net, which causes grain to trickle into the center sump. We also are utilizing air, which is going to be hopefully effective. We'll have to see how it looks like after the tests. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen a video of an air hose blowing air up through a bucket of sand and then sand bubbling up on the top. It almost becomes liquid in form. The same concept in theory works for grain, depending on how much air we need, how many PSIs we need, how we can maybe match that with some of the blower systems that are already located on the outside of the grain bin. All depends on how testing goes. But I think it has a value in the fact that it reduces friction for corn to trickle into the center sump. With my technology, it's not moving everything all at once. I'm sure Matt can attest to how much grain sits at the bottom of a grain bin and how much it weighs. It's a lot. Hundreds of thousands of pounds. So if we can incrementally and just slowly move grain into the center sump, it's a marathon, not a race. And the more efficient we can do that, the faster we can make these mechanisms work. Of course, I'm a startup. I'm very early on. I've got a lot of designing and engineering to do to get to the final product that I'm going to bring to market. But what we've been seeing from our initial tests, and what I've been hearing from my lead engineer, is all positive and very exciting. From a perspective of a sales point of view, this is a value added product. This is not a competitor with the sweeps. At the moment it isn't. Bin sweeps are, depending on the certain bin sweep, can be very dangerous. So of course my goal is to keep farmers out of the grain bin. Something Matt talked about a little bit that I think I'd like to echo is I'm trying to build a product that is not made in some office by an engineer who's never been stepped foot on a farm. I'm a farmer myself. I know what farmers don't like to deal with, make the job dangerous, and this is a product that hopefully is value added and also makes the farmer's life a little bit easier and a little bit safer. We've thought of ideas of actually working with the bin sweeps because they eliminate nearly, let's say a sook up power sweep. They can revolve around the entirety of the circumference of the grain bin once and eliminate nearly 90% of the grain bin, or 90% of the grain that's sitting at the bottom of your grain bin before clean out. If we could work with the power sweeps and use the net at the same time, this may work for very, very large grain bins. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different ways that we could attack this type of mechanism and this innovation, but it's pretty exciting. Um, uh, and I think we're getting closer and closer to our final product.
Yeah, if you could, for our viewers who are not familiar with the inside of a grain bin, can you describe what these sweeps are? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So sweeps have changed a lot since, well, since I'd even say 10 to 15 years ago. They are much, much different. The early old bin sweeps are the more dangerous ones. Those are just a free spinning auger with a shield behind it and a turning wheel on the end. And the farmer actually needs to get inside the grain bin. It needs to be pushing the sweep along, sweeping behind it, scooping in front of it. My local Pioneer dealer actually nearly lost his leg in his life from a bin sweep incident. And all it took was him just not paying attention, and it snuck up behind him and wrapped his leg up in the bin sweep. Super dangerous. Also kicks up a lot of corn dust. Farmers don't like breathing that in. Even when you have a mask on, it sometimes doesn't fully prevent you from sucking in corn dust or bean dust. I've gotten sick countless times from breathing in that nasty corn dust. So I believe that the grain bin manufacturing industry has made great strides in making the bin sweep not only more effective but safer. I think there's still some work to be done, and if we can keep the farmer out of the grain bin 100% zero entry, I don't think anybody's going to complain about that.
Yeah, and so just so people are clear, your product eliminates the need for that sweep, and it's basically what like it's a liner for the bottom of the bin that you lift up, and it forces the grain into the middle, so you don't have to have that sweep going around and moving it to the middle, right?
Correct. Correct. And I have a video on my website that actually is of the first alpha test working in my own grain bin. It's a concept that is really hard to explain, but it's easy to visualize. And the video is a short 15-second sped up video of just the net gently lifting up on the sides of the corn bin and the grain trickling in. It's not the entirety of the test done because that took hours upon hours. But you can, if you wanted to better visualize what my product did, on my website, renneragsolutions.com, you will be able to find a video of it.
And are you going to be able to make something to accommodate the giant 165-foot diameter bins that Matt was talking about?
Well, we'll see. I drive past those every other day on my way to college, actually, and it's pretty remarkable. When you are driving past them, you're like, "Oh, those are the biggest grain bins in the world," and then you realize you're like 5 miles away from them, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, those are definitely the biggest grain bins in the world."
How
But yeah,
much?
we hope to, that would be incredible. I joke about that with my partners and my coworkers sometime. Someday hopefully we can put an agronet in one of those gigantic grain bins. That's the goal. But
Yeah, Matt, what do you think about this innovation? And how has the sweep technology
Sure.
changed over time?
Yeah, no, Caleb correctly puts it that the industry uh, hasn't had a great solution for this for many decades. It was just kind of it existed as a this is how you do your job as a farmer. You effectively the problem we're trying to solve here is when the grain bin's full, no problem. When you're as long as you condition that grain throughout the year, when you're ready to unload the bin, you should be able to pull the slide gate on the center sump and grain will just free flow to the middle. It'll kind of create a conical or a cone shape at the very top of the bin, what is commonly known as coring a bin. And then that grain will again gravity flow out, and then there'll be a mechanical auger underneath the floor that's permanently installed that will then convey that into your 1,000 bushel semi trailer or whatever it is, and you're taking it out to co-op, elevator, ethanol plant, what have you, feedstock, whatever. Um, uh, and then at the end, you're left with kind of that shape that's around the inside that can no longer flow through. Then there are spots you can open up what are called intermediate sumps, and those cannot be used when the bin's full or the bin will collapse. A lot of people think that a grain bin's a lot like a tin can, like something like a can of soup. Um, if you took a can of soup and you expanded it to the size and scale of what a grain bin is, even a small one, like an 18-foot wide grain bin, that steel would be more than a half-inch thick. And so that's not financially feasible. And so we designed these for the actual conditions. And so the a grain bin itself is more like a balloon than it is like a soup can. So that it's not as stout as you might think that it is. You can't have that the sucking force, that the vacuum force that you're going to experience by opening up an intermediate sump. If you take a look at large grain facilities and where a bin has failed, almost for sure that's one of the major causes of it is people improperly unloading the bin. So, and that has everything to do with, well, the center sump is plugged and I can't get any more flow out, so I should be able to open up another one and get it flowing again. Well, if you create too much of a negative pressure there, it'll suck the side of it in. And so what we've done from a sweep standpoint is we have created a truly zero entry sweep. It's something that I actually designed the software and hardware for in 2010. We ran our first one in a commercial facility in an ethanol plant, and it's a paddle sweep. So it'll actually go beyond it. It'll cycle once, and it'll pretty well take care of most of it. It'll cycle again, and the floor will be completely clean. And then no one goes into the bin the entire time. But that's a relatively new invention, the last decade of the industry, and it runs completely autonomously. It actually keeps track of how hard it's working and stops when you have an avalanche, and then continues to run around. We actually, in that same ethanol facility, it's actually in Arthur, Iowa. Um, that facility, one of the bins is ours and one of them is our competitors. In our bin, it takes them about 18 hours to unload the entire bin and keep it clean. The other one requires two people, and it takes about 26 hours of full-time supervision and sometimes getting into the bin, which is unsafe.
Yeah, and is some of the innovation in this area, has it been delayed just because there's sort of this like inherent risk to farming? Like it seems like farmers just know that like, I work a somewhat dangerous job, and so is there less emphasis on the safety aspect of it? Or
I think that that's probably a legacy item of farming, but that's one of the things we take incredibly seriously. Safety is what we call ingrained in our culture here. We provide a not passing pulley on every grain bin that we sell, so that for emergency feeder lines, when that happens, you don't have it when you build the bin. You're never going to have one. So that's a piece. We have a special safety door which keeps you from um, uh, accidentally only locking the outer door. On all grain bins, there's actually an inner and an outer door. The inner door is the thing that actually keeps the grain from going out and the bin sheets deforming. Then there's a cover for that inner door on the outside. There's been plenty of situations where a producer has closed the outer door, forgot to lock the inner door, and then the moment they go to open up that door, they might get flooded in grain. And there's been several accidents that have resulted in fatalities from that kind of a thing. One as recently as last year, which is something that our new safety door that we came out with 2 years ago is designed to prevent. The inner door will not, or the outer door will not close without the inner door being verified locked. So just another way to be able to keep people safe. But it's something that we're not only passionate about, but something that we care about and is designed in every one of our products.
Caleb, you had your hand up. You want to chime in on the risks of being a farmer?
Yeah. So you've got a really good point, I think, about how there is this inherent expectation with farmers that if you're going to own on-site storage and be able to decide when you sell your grain, you need to just deal with the fact that you're going to have to climb in 5 or 6 grain bins once a year and clean them out, and that's a very real that's a very real thing that anybody who is trying to tackle this issue of autonomously cleaning out grain bins with zero entry have got to deal with. But I think that I have shifted and pivoted as a company from the point of view that this does not have to solely be sold as a safety product. The agronet does not have to solely be sold as a safety product. It actually is probably got more value as an efficiency product. So when the farmer does not need to have 3 or 4 farmers in the grain bin scooping and shoveling, and then another farmer outside watching the truck get filled up, then that not only frees up a lot of hands for other jobs, but also you don't have to pay them for as many hours or put them in compromising positions. That has some effects certainly on insurance if you're taking out one of the most dangerous parts of the job. So and the reason I think you actually have some proof of efficiency of cleaning out a grain bin is what farmers are interested in, maybe not the safety aspect. And that's just how well power sweeps have done in the industry. That's a more efficient option for cleaning out grain bins, and the market shows that farmers are looking for that. So I would be a little cautious to people who say, well, farmers are never, they'd rather get in there with a scoop and a shovel than have to pay an extra however so many dollars for a piece of technology that's going to make them safer. The market shows otherwise, and there is certainly a space for these technologies to be in the market and actually flourish.
Yeah, and Matt, you were talking about your innovation the last decade, the paddle sweep, or I don't know if that's what you want to call it. What's the uptake on that? Like, what percentage of farmers would you say have moved to that?
It's actually our most popular product. In the past, we came out with the what we call the farm paddle sweep. So we did it as a commercial thing first because there was such a need for this. Because I mean, think about what a job, and Caleb will know this personally, but it's a job to clean out the floor of a grain bin when you're done. That's a real thing, and that job sucks. And it's one that no one wants to do. You're talking in some cases, the sweep technology or lack thereof may leave inches to a foot of grain at the bottom of this bin that has to be shoveled or broomed or vacuumed or blown, whatever mechanism you want to be able to have done. The paddle sweep, we've created both a factory OEM install, and we've also created a retrofit kit. And it has been easily our most popular product. Like I said, for the last 5 years, as it takes away that job entirely. You turn it on, you run it, you don't get in the bin. It cleans the floor completely out, and and when you're done with it, you're done. There's no added job of getting in the bin afterwards.
Gotcha. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left, and just curious if each of you would speak on what's next. You know, what's next with your company?
Well, I'll go first. So our goal is to keep innovating and bringing new products to our customers. So the next innovation is really the new generation of technology that brings more nitrogen replacement there. We also have a new suite of formulations. We're launching our Gen 3 product for the 26th season, which is combining microbes that gives farmers a yield advantage in application. And we're looking at a dry formulation that's the hopper box type concept. So this is applying a product through a hopper box there. So the innovation cycle continues, and our goal is to keep launching new products that bring new solutions to our customers as quickly as we possibly can. And our innovation cycles are decreasing as our science team and our agronomy team work on different ways of bringing our technology to the market. So we're very excited about the future and the new technology that we can bring to our customers.
How many scientists do you have working at your company on these?
Well, about half the company are scientists, so it's a big group. And I'm including our agronomists as the scientists because they're a very important part of what we do. So that is probably the most important part of our business in terms of bringing the technology and what we have to do. The other aspect, as we discussed yesterday, Jared, is we're also waiting for regulatory approval in Brazil, so then we can start launching our products in Brazil. And the corn market there is very interesting with multiple seasons of growth. And so that will be our international growth. We sell some product in Kenya, but it's done on a very small basis. But Brazil would be a huge growth, and then Canada after that. So that's the next big growth area for us as a company.
Yeah, what's the holdup in Brazil? Why aren't they approving your product yet?
Brazil tends to work on its own timelines for regulatory approval, so they're very methodical in how they go about doing the approval, just like they do in any other country. So even in the US, we have to go through a rigorous process of approval to make sure the product is safe and meets their requirements. So we're in the final kind of regulatory trials to get the data back to MAPA, which is the Brazilian regulatory agency, and we're hopeful that we would get approval sometime this year.
Well, that's going to be huge for you guys too, right? Because Brazil is a very much up and coming corn growing country, right?
Yeah, Brazil is very interesting, as we were discussing yesterday. It's this tremendous growth. It's traditionally been primarily a soybean exporting and producing country, but corn is playing a very important role now. Sometimes as a second crop, but in many cases as a primary crop. The other product that we're very excited to launch, the other crop, is cotton, and that's both in Brazil and in the US. So we've just launched our cotton product this season. We've had fantastic uptake of that, and we're really looking forward to growing the market in cotton, both in the US and then eventually in Brazil.
Yeah. Well, and just for the folks who are tuning in that are used to seeing, the one growth of corn in Iowa each year, tell us what happens in Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil is a tropical country, so really depending on which region you grow, you may have two, sometimes even three kind of. They have a winter corn, in their winter corn, which is not really winter for us. It's very warm there, and even in their winter. And then they have the regular season corn, and sometimes they have it in between seasons. So they're very productive in terms of how many crops they can get out in a season. So they have multiple seasons in a year.
Yeah. Well, I think even their second season of corn is more productive than the first, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Cool. Matt, what do you guys got coming up?
Yeah, as we mentioned, the Sync initiative is a big one for us. We're committed to growth. We're heavy into research and development, into mergers and acquisitions. We're making a lot of noise, in this space, both from a market share standpoint, as well as a market penetration standpoint. We've been able to be successful in areas where we traditionally have, or the industry has had issues in, and that has a lot to do with I sit 75 feet from one of our production facilities. We're here. We're not made in Iowa and then corporate in California or anywhere there. We're committed to it. We have 650 people that work at this facility that I'm at in Sheffield. Where effectively about 90% of the stuff that we make as a business comes from. Um, you know, we were just talking about Brazil. We are also facing, some significant taxation and tariff issues. That's actually one of the traditional barriers to entering the Brazilian market is the 40% VAT tax that comes into imported product, which is why almost all of these entities have to have a Brazilian entity for them to economically make money. But now we're facing, similar issues with Mexico and Canada. We have a significant presence in both Canada and Mexico that are really financially hurting right now because of that 25% import tariff, which we're hoping gets removed today, yesterday, a week ago. But I mean that needs to go immediately. But we're making some shifts in our production schedules to try to accommodate. But it is one of those things that that we're actively managing and exploring new areas where what makes sense to be in country, what makes sense to ship into. We're constantly doing that, but we're not going anywhere. So we're going to continue to make strides both in the farm and commercial markets.
Yeah. How do you ship your products?
It
It's not
depends.
overseas.
It depends on what product it is. Some of it is going to be totally knocked down, like a bin, for instance. A bin is more assemble on site, whereas opposed to a dryer is pretty much completely factory assembled, and you come out and you stack it, or you roll it into place and hook it up into gas and electricity, depending on what model it is. And then material handling is somewhere in the middle, partially assembled, partial site erection.
Yeah. Very good. Caleb, what do you got cooking up next? What's your next invention beyond this one?
Well, I need to get the first one figured out first and engineered. That's pretty important. But my company isn't called the Agronet; it's called Renner Ag Solutions. So I am very excited to hopefully diversify and continue to come up with new cool ideas in the future. One involving different ways that we look at actually drying grain, and how that can be paired with geothermal. I have a colleague who has done some studies on geothermal grain drying with fans, the external fans that are attached to the side of the grain bin, and the significant reduction in energy use, and pair that with the sustainability of geothermal as a whole, which don't let anybody fool you. Farmers are very interested in being sustainable and being good stewards of the land and the environment. Um, this is something that is not super ag related, but I remember talking to you about it a little bit, Jared. I have been toying around with the idea of a personal in garage car wash for farm trucks, and just parking your garage or parking your truck in your garage and turning it on and rinsing it off. Uh, I've done a couple designs and renderings of that to see if what that would look like, but that's not exactly ag related, but it affects agriculture in ways that you could ask any farmer and they would appreciate a piece of technology like that. But like I said, we have to focus on the agronet right now, and I'm wildly excited to test in farmers' grain bins this summer, and I'm wildly excited to see what happens after that. And I highly invite everybody to join me for this adventure and either call me or text me or email me. I would like to keep up to date. You can find all those contact informations on my page, and big things ahead for sure.
I like the idea of being able to wash my car in my garage because if I wash my car in town and drive out to my house in the country, then it's already dirty by the time I get home, you know?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining us today. It was a great discussion. For the viewers out there, join us all week at noon for discussions on innovation in agriculture. Tomorrow's session is from idea to market. That session will look at technologies such as drones, artificial intelligence, and GPS with the potential to advance agriculture to new levels, from concept to launch, from launch to reimagined. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, ITC, for supporting this program. And thank you to our panelists today for all of their insights. Don't forget to follow Iowa Ideas all year round. Our other in-depth weeks this year will focus on cancer in Iowa and energy and environment. And our 2-day full conference is set for October 2nd and 3rd. So hopefully we'll see you guys again tomorrow at noon. Thank you, panelists. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Jared.